Call the meeting to order.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Martini, lead us in the pledge, please.
Please join me in the pledge to the greatest flag in the world.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the city of Reno, please, roll call, please.
Hasjev? Guston? Zadra? Sfraza? Dorch? Absent. Ayazi? Absent. Cashel?
Here.
City Sparks?
Mayor Martini?
Here.
Councilmembers Ratty? Here. Lawson?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Harrigan? Absent. Schmidt?
Here.
All right. Washoe County School.
Washoe County School District, Mr. D.
Thank you, Mr. D. Trustee Carn?
Here.
Trustee Clark? Absent. Trustee Green?
Here.
I'm here. Trustee Gutierrez? Trustee Kelly?
Here.
Trustee Mayor?
Here.
McCrory? Here.
Public comment cards, any public comment? Oh, excuse me. Washoe County, yes, sorry about that.
Chairman Larkin, absent. Vice Chairperson Weber. Here. Commissioner Retterness.
Here.
Commissioner Dunn. Present. Commissioner Hunke. Absent.
All right, we have public comment. Donna Klotz.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Donna Klontz. I serve on the Reno Senior Services Advisory Board as a volunteer. I'm here to speak to one topic briefly. The current senior services budget for the county, Washoe County, has a general fund tag for about $230,000 from the county general fund budget. At this point, the county is facing so many issues that there is a list of cuts that are being proposed for making that budget balanced. That full $230,000 is on that list at this point, even though budget talks have not yet begun, to cut the entire cost of seniors to the county, Washoe County, which funds and matches all of the services that we get through the state and federal and private dollars for seniors. That would mean losing the food, the meal program at Washoe Senior Center, the Meals on Wheels program, the social worker that visits seniors who are homebound, who we are trying to keep from going into assisted living kinds of situations, and several other services for that small amount of money. And so we're urging the Washoe County Commission, and we're urging all citizens to know about this situation and to support the county's decisions when the budget process goes through, to hold that amount as it is, the $230,000, that matches 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times monies that come in from other sources that provide for senior services. I want to commend all of you for being here today. I, as a citizen, am glad to see all of the major governmental entities meeting together. I hope that you do this more often, especially as we're all facing all the money problems that all of you face, because we have such vital services that each one of the governmental entities provides to our citizens here. I hope that you get together quarterly, at least, in the near future, as all of these situations kind of join together and we find out how the state of Nevada is doing with the money. Because together, as a regional group working on all these problems, we're all going to come out ahead. So I thank you all for putting the time in to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie McMullen.
For the record, Connie McMullen, Washoe County Senior Center Advisory Board Chairman. I am not going to repeat what Donna said, but I am here as well to talk about seniors. I've been doing this for quite a while, and there always seems to be a focus that maybe the county should take charge of senior services that are really human services for people 65 plus. I really believe, as you're addressing your item number 6 on your agenda, that you all should get together and eventually start to plan to deliver senior services as a regional service, because it does serve so many people in Sun Valley and Gerlach and Reno, Neal Road, Sparks. This is not just a county service. We are all county residents, but it should be a regional service, and it should have a regional funding mechanism. Those monies that are coming out of the general fund, they specifically fund one thing. If we don't divide and gut down the programs, 5 or 6 are there. General funding funds Daybreak. And if Daybreak goes away, there are 60 people, 60 families whose loved one is stricken by dementia or Alzheimer's that will eventually end up one way or another, either at home with their family or in a nursing home. And that's a cost of 3 times more as what we're paying now. Most of those half are on Medicaid. So I want you to consider some things like that. Some of them are also veterans. And I think those are the 2 programs that are most likely slated, most at risk, the Daybreak and the Senior Law Project. We lost Ernie Nielsen, retired from the Senior Law Project, and last week we just lost the only attorney that's holding the program together. So if the hiring freeze goes down at Washoe County this May, that program will go away too. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Jacobs.
I'm Stephen Jacobs, chairperson of the Reno Senior Services Advisory Committee, and I'll try not to repeat what either of those people have said. But to my way of thinking, we should not be talking about cutting senior services. We should be talking about growing senior services. The services we have now are funded from a formula that was developed in 1985, and we all know how much the senior population has grown since then. I think if we all put our heads together, we can figure out ways not to cut services, but to improve services, which is really what we need to be talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sam Dene.
Sam Dene, the Encyclopedia of Reno Government, and I adamantly support those folks who just spoke. One of the main situations is that any of the money that you provide, the matching funds double and triple and quadruple that amount of money. So senior facilities have to be saved and helped and promoted. As a matter of fact, as a member of the 2 Wild Yankees band, I do lots of concerts, volunteer concerts for those folks. For those people who've been living in a cellar and don't know who Sam Dene is, I'm Sam Dene. I'm the Encyclopedia of Reno Government. I don't usually come to these meetings quite this early, as Mr. Mayor thought I was usually sleeping until the noon meeting. But anyway, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I spent many years flying fighters and bombers, defending our nation. After my airline that I flew for 30 years, after Pan Am was blown out of business over Lockerbie, I started my new career, unpaid career, of coming to these city council meetings and most of the other government meetings. And I have been neglecting the school board, but nobody's really invited me to go there anyway. So, as a matter of fact, nobody's ever invited me to come to the city council meetings. That's right. I'm here to speak on 2 things. One, you see the headline right here. The GOP means the Republican Caucus. That's the voting group, the folks voting for the who they want to nominate as president. They're saying there's a big problem with the caucus voting situation, that maybe votes were being stolen or misplaced, and they want to switch over to a primary type system that is used normally. Let me tell you right now, the primary system is even more susceptible to vote stealing than a caucus situation. What America has to do, what Nevada has to do, is go back to age-old way, paper voting, where you can see your neighbor vote and you count all the votes in one little room, 50 different places, 100 different places around the community, and each one is done individually. You vote into that Sequoia voting machine. It's just a video game that nobody knows anything about, subject to tampering. It's outlawed in California. What we need to do is we need to promote the fact, advertise the fact that vote stealing is a capital crime. Anybody who caught stealing votes should be tarred and feathered slowly, and then they should be drawn and quartered slowly. There's nothing worse in America than stealing votes, nothing. We have no way of even knowing if any of you really belong at that dais when you consider that we have the worst voting situation, vote stealing, or maybe the best vote stealing, the most successful vote stealing operation in America right here in Nevada with the Sequoia machine. Last but not least, I highly recommend that you do not disband the fire department. Keep that merger alive. It may not be perfect, but it needs to stay the way it is. If it had been disbanded and separated, those tragic fires recently would be even more tragic.
Thank you. Close the public comment section now. Bring it back to the table. Approval of the agenda. Second. Have motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. President.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just a question for the county, because I think many people thought that we're going to have animal control and the issues of seniors on the agenda today. So if we could just get the timeline from the county based on the public comment. And Connie, I do appreciate what you're saying, because I think maybe we should agendize that, Mr. Mayor, is looking at senior services regionally. But I would like to know from the county, and if we can get another joint meeting that specifically talks about the seniors and the animal control issues, because I think there's things we can do through the interlocal agreement which protect animal services, but also help with the senior issues as well. So if the county manager, I didn't know when it was on your agenda, or if we could get another joint meeting scheduled quickly. That seems hard to do.
Mr. Mayor, for Councilwoman Speraza, Katie Simon, Washington County Manager, for the record. The county commissioners will be hearing budget presentations throughout the month of April, and then will be making their decisions about funding levels in May, just as the cities will.
So, Mr. Mayor, just a suggestion, maybe before the end of this agenda, if we could all look at our calendars today and see if there's a day that works for everybody, so we could get this on a joint meeting before the county hears this issue. I think that'd be a really good idea.
Okay. All right. Item number 6, update on regional economic development efforts.
Good morning, Mayors Cashel and Martini, members of the Sparks and Reno City Council, Washoe County Commission Board, and the school district trustees. My name is Armando Ornelas. I'm the city planner for the city of Sparks. I'm filling in for Sparks City Manager Sean Carey. This item essentially involves two things. One is we're going to brief you on Recharge Nevada, which is essentially the Northern Nevada regional response to AB 449. As part of that briefing, we will have presentations from Steve Hill, who is the Executive Director of the Governor's Office on Economic Development, and the Executive Directors of EDON and NNDA, the Northern Nevada Development Authority, and they are Mike Kazmierski and Rob Hooper. Then secondly, we're asking the Reno and Sparks City Councils to consider adoption of the Statement of Intent, which was the statement that was presented at the Recharge Nevada event last November. The Washoe County Commission has already taken action on that, so this would be that second step for the Reno and Sparks Councils. Very briefly, AB 449 was the bill that was passed by the state of Nevada legislature and signed by Governor Sandoval last session to reorganize and re-energize the state's economic development efforts. Obviously, there's a strong imperative for economic development in the state of Nevada and in our region as well. The response, in part, has involved the organization of a regional partnership of all the various entities in Northern Nevada who are integral to economic development, and that includes local governments, the education sector, and organizations like the Chamber and EDON, as well as Northern Nevada Development Authority. The Recharge Summit we felt was very successful. It was organized very quickly. We had good attendance, and I think it was a statement that there's a strong interest on both the public and the private sectors to forge a strong new regional economic development partnership. Among the next steps is a mayors and chairs meeting, which Washoe County is taking the lead on organizing. That's going to be held or later this month at Turkey Meadows Community College. Katie, if I could ask you to very briefly fill us in on that, that would be great.
Thank you. Katie Simon, Washoe County Manager for the record. Thanks, Armando. This is intended to be a meeting of the elected county commission chairs throughout the region and the mayors throughout the region, and the region being broader than Washoe County, including Lyon County, Douglas, Story, Carson City, et cetera. And that meeting is February 24th at TMCC, and that is from 1 to 2:30. Because it's not a meeting of all the elected officials, it's not a noticed public meeting.
So before we ask you to take action on the statement of intent, we're going to ask, again, the state and the two development authorities to provide you briefings on what they've been doing and how they're working together through the coalition and with the state of Nevada. And so if we could, we'll start with Steve Hill.
Good morning. I'm Steve Hill. I'm the Director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and the invitation, and appreciate all the work that many people in this room, many people in the economic development community, and all of our partners in this region have put out over the last several months in order to drive this effort forward. A year ago, I think there was real question whether the region was working together effectively, whether that was those efforts were in the best interests of the entire region and the state. And over the past year, I think we've put that issue behind us. The new law that was referred to, AB 449, gives me or requires me to appoint regional development authorities. I've talked to many of you, certainly I've talked to all of your staffs, been in several meetings. I think it's important that regional development authority concept be generated regionally. I don't think that should be an appointment from the state. I think we should certify those results. I think if we can be helpful in guiding those discussions, and I hope we have been to this point, that's important. But I think the regions know what works best in each of the regions. We've had some conversations about how to define the region, and obviously there are many participants in that conversation, lots of counties, lots of cities, the university systems, the economic development authorities. But I think that conversation is on a terrific path. I think the event on February 24th will get the word out on that if it's not already out. But I think the issue of cooperation, of how to work together, is an issue that we will continue to need to work on because specific instances will come up that may cause concern. But I think there's a commitment on the part of the region to work together and make it happen. And I think there's some understanding on how to do that. And I think that is nothing but of benefit for the citizens of the entire area. Tomorrow, the state plan for economic development will be released. First, I guess I ought to tell you that this is not going to part the heavens and provide all the answers for all of our problems going forward. Those answers have to come from regions. We make it a point, Brookings made it a point in their report, we will in the state report, that economies and markets are regionally based. When companies are in business, they don't look at the geographic boundaries, the political boundaries that have been drawn. They look at where their customers are, where their workforce is, where the education is, where the infrastructure is, and think about their businesses along those lines. As we look at developing an economy, we need to look at it in the same light. The plan deals pretty specifically with how regional development authorities, how that process will work over the next 3 or 4 months. We will be issuing an RFP by the end of March. We will ask the regions to reply by the end of April. We'll make appointments by the end of May and then work through the contract process by the end of June for funding in 2013, or fiscal year 2013. We open that process to allow anyone who feels they are credible as a respondent to the RFP to respond. The state law is actually a little murky on that subject. It says you have to be an RDA in order to respond, and the process then will determine who the RDAs are at the end. So in order to make sure that there is open access to that process, we will provide temporary RDA appointments that will expire on June 1st for the purpose of responding to the RFP. I'd like to say, though, that the direction this region is headed, I think, is terrific. EDON and NNDA are working well together, and while we will allow and invite alternative proposals to that RFP process, we would only be inclined to approve additional RDAs if there is a significant reason to do so. We think that the community is rallying around the effort, and we think that broad effort and that collaboration is important, and we will not look to split that up in any way. The other topic that I'd like to just touch on is regional planning, which is also dealt with pretty significantly in the state plan. And as we write the state plan, we have to look at the status of all the different regions throughout the state, and they're different. Some regions are further along in a planning effort than others, and I think this region would qualify as one that is further along. What I would like to say is the state plan is structured in a 6-step planning process: vision, mission, objectives, benchmark, strategic initiatives, and tactics. And as we do regional planning, if we could use that same language in order to plug into the state plan, it would be helpful. We're certainly not mandating that. And as we think about regional planning, I'd ask you to think about it at least in one parallel track in terms of the specific opportunities that both we identify in the state plan and you identify in the regions, and around job creation. We could get into a conversation about whether government creates jobs, and from a primary job standpoint, I don't think that happens. But government, education, businesses, chambers all play a role in helping the private sector to create jobs. And so starting with a conversation or a question, for example, along the lines of, how could we grow, and I say we, I include the private sector, I include all those participants, how could we expand job creation in the geothermal sector by 500 jobs? What would that look like? What would that take? What does the industry require in order to do that? And you start to run into, what are the obstacles? Do they not have the workforce here? Do they need financing? Do they need drilling that is more efficient, less expensive, more likely to produce a well that produces energy, and therefore need research? Are there federal resources that could help with that? Do they need some infrastructure? What are the obstacles to that specific industry growing some specific amount of jobs? And if you start asking those questions in each one of these areas of opportunities and bring in that industry to help answer those questions, I think that is at least a part of what regional economic development planning ought to look like going forward. We've got a lot of people who need work. We know that. I know you have done a tremendous amount of work in order to improve that situation. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be a part of that and happy to help, and appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. The next briefing is going to be by Mike Kazmierski, who is the Executive Director of EDON. EDON is working with their counterparts at NNDA, and I think you'll hear from each of the two Executive Directors in part about how they're hoping to collaborate as we move forward. Mike?
Thanks, and I've got some handouts. Who do I give this to? Pass those around. First of all, thank you for all your hard work to date in supporting and growing the economy here in Northern Nevada. It takes a team, and what I see here is a team that cares. And my sense in this community, after having been here a whole 2.5 months, is this community is ready to do something. Strategic planning is a lot of fun. Some people say it's a great exercise, but at the end of the day, we have 25,000 people that need us to get it right this time, and I'm pretty excited about the team we're pulling together now to make that happen. The handouts coming around, we'll talk to basically what the Brookings report identified as what regional development authorities should do, and I'll give you a minute to get those. I will tell you that the Recharge Nevada Coalition, which is continuing to meet on a fairly regular basis, and Sean Carey is not here, is kind of leading that up, has set aside a task force that will move forward in the strategic planning for this region, and specifically EDON and NNDA partnership of working their different pieces of the region. As Steve mentioned, the state has launched a strategic planning effort. We've been a part of that process, meeting on a regular basis to be engaged with the planning requirements. So there's a lot of upfront work that's been done already, and we're in the process of hiring a facilitator to pull the regional planning piece together, because it will take representatives from all the government entities, representatives from the key partnerships in the community, and an opportunity for public comment and input as well. This is not going to be a two people in a smoky room that announces here's the miracle and everyone else go do it. It's going to have to be a lot of shoulders to the wheels by many people in order to pull this thing off. What you have in front of you is what RDAs and what they should do, regional development authorities, and Brookings identified those 11 areas. And the state is working to redefine this a little bit, and we'll see tomorrow the more specifics on that. But this is a great start point, because this is really what EDON is looking at now to put energy towards. And as you notice, 9 and 11 are highlighted. And in my assessment, and I get to do this as an outsider coming in, EDON has done a lot of things, but of these 11, they've probably done 9 and 11 pretty well. The other 9 have not been done so well or at all. So it tells you there will be a fairly dramatic shift and a refocusing of EDON's efforts in order to cover the landscape on all 11 of these priorities as defined by the Brookings report. Below that, you can see the 7 opportunities that have emerged from the Brookings report, and all 30 target areas. And we're taking a hard look at this. There are a few others that I think are worth some energy, especially since I spent some time with Stan Thomas in Northern California Bay Area a week ago, and continue to see tremendous opportunity for our attraction of manufacturing of all kinds. And really, it's tough to make anything in California, and it's not so tough to do it here. So we're going to be out on the road extensively working the manufacturing sector. NNDA has manufacturing as well, about a quarter of the workforce that we do in the EDON area, so we'll work this issue in partnership. And in financial and intangible enterprises, this is an interesting area that we're taking a look at. It was mentioned in the report. It's an opportunity to bring in people that may run businesses here, and in theory, if this thing works right, help us to put some energy into our downtown. They could get lofts and run operations in our downtown and give us a chance to move the downtown in the right direction. And then the last page, I mentioned those 11 things. You can see if you say this needs to be done, the first thing you've got to ask is who's going to do it? And that's what we've tried to do here. EDON is involved in all 11, but we have regional team partnerships on most of these items. It's not going to be done with a lot of help from a lot of people. And as you go down the right side, you can see just some of the members of the team that are going to help us initiate this planning process. And I'll tell you, this is going to be a tight timeline, and that's why we have a facilitator that's going to help us. Our goal is to have something in draft by the end of March. And for those of you who've done strategic planning before, you know everyone likes to make it about an 18-month process, and you get to do focus groups, and everyone gets to talk about their pet rock, and it gets to be real exciting, except 18 months later, you look back and say, where did that go? We've got 2 months of hard work ahead of us, and we're going to ask that the staffs of the government entities, as well as our partners, give us a little bit of time in this process, because it's going to take a focused effort to get a draft plan done, because the state's timeline is a little bit less aggressive, but we'd like to know what we're doing before we submit an RFP at the end of March. So that's really just a summary. I would just like to say that I've been here, as I said, 2.5 months, and I can tell you this is a wonderful place. Sometimes we're a little hard on ourselves, but I've been all over the country, and having just come from California on a visit, it just reminds me of what a great place Northern Nevada is. And it's going to take the team effort to move us in the right direction, but we have 25,000 people that need us to do it right. And it's a partnership, and the state is aggressively part of that team. I can tell you Rob Hooper and his team on NNDA are very much a part of this region and part of our team, and all of you are part of that team as well. So I look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead to really change our economy. And I think we all know it's time for that. And did we want to open it for, do I have questions, or do I just sit down, or how does this work? Questions? Any questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, sir. We would be remiss to not bring up the regional jobs team and how they will fit in this plan, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of that team, and that there's over 100 of us that meet monthly at the chamber. They are sort of our pseudo-sponsor, and we have come up with some excellent strategy for the region, especially when it comes to attracting venture capitalists and other investors to make sure we can get these projects off the ground. So I avail you, all of those soldiers and myself, and hopefully a little bit of staff time, Madam Manager, to help you with these meetings. I know that Katie's aware of it, and we'll be taking that also on the road. But we'd love to see you at the meeting. It's this Thursday, 10:30, at the chamber.
Well, first of all, I commend you, Commissioner, and all the people represented in that group of people who really care and have put a lot of energy into it to date. And certainly there's expertise there that we're going to draw on as we go forward, and I look forward to working with that group, along with, I mean, I can tell you there are probably 20 different key partners that we have to touch base with and incorporate into this plan if it's going to be worth the paper it's printed on. So I look forward to that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Bretternitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I have, I'm reading the last page of the handout that you've given us, and I see on all 11 items that EDON is taking, obviously a major role, but the question I've got is, how does this fit in the regional deal with NNDA? I mean, it does indicate that it's EDON and who is going to lead the Reno, Tahoe, Sparks effort, and I understand that that's kind of traditional EDON turf. But on the broader scale, with the region, which I think is the focus of the state effort, how does all this work with NNDA, and or does it or doesn't it? Or could you help me out there?
Well, it's a great question, and it's part of the reason why one of the key requirements to even starting this effort was to clearly define how NNDA and EDON would work together. We have a memorandum of understanding that we've drafted. It's being reviewed by our boards, and it'll clearly delineate the areas of responsibility and where we will cross support each other, where we'll integrate our efforts, for example, database integration, and how do we manage and work our piece, because the reality is Carson City is very different than Reno, and how Rob manages that region and the rural area and how EDON works in the more metro area will have different focuses and different priorities with a whole lot of overlap. So the goal would be that as EDON moves forward with our planning, and certainly NNDA has worked forward with their planning, we continually mesh the two plans and look for where we can do things together. Maybe one effort, for example, the EB5 certification process for the region will be led at this point by NNDA because they put 2 years of effort into that. There's no need for EDON to try and set up a process that allows for the visa purchase moving into the country. So that's just one example, but there are dozens of examples of where we need to work. And the key there is NNDA and EDON have got to work together. There's more economic development efforts in this region than even these two public-private partnerships can address. So the goal would be to figure out how can we focus and not duplicate, and at the same time support each other in this effort.
So is that memorandum of understanding and that definition or defining of the relationship between the two entities going to meet the criteria or satisfy the state in their ultimate designation of an RDA? I would defer, obviously, to Steve Hill, but my sense is there will be 2 RDAs in this region, and the 2 RDAs will work together as we are attempting to move forward to address very differently these 11 major areas, and the state has actually refined this down a little bit more. So you'll have 2 plans for 2 regions, and obviously the focus on the rural piece is a little bit different than our focus, but there'll be areas where we overlap and work together on. So Rob's plan will have a fair amount of detail in each of these 11 points, as will ours, and in fact, he'll talk about he's a little bit further along in this process than we are. He'll talk about some of the specifics in this area, but I'll tell you that the goal would be that the 2 RDAs, as the state looks to the north, there are 2 RDAs that they're looking to, and we work together to accomplish the needs of the region.
Mr. President.
I guess my question would be for Mr. Hill, and just on what the RDAs and from the Brookings report, one of the things that the Brookings report clearly identified was education and diversification of the tax base throughout that entire report. I don't see anything here that really goes through and addresses that in this overall report or statement and intent by the Recharge Group. How is that going to be incorporated in the overall picture as we move forward and start talking about economic development initiatives?
I have not seen what you have in front of you. So
it's just the 11 things.
Oh, okay. The education component piece is obviously an exceptionally important part of economic development. And that is from K through 12 through higher education, workforce training with our community college partners. And we have, as we've put together the state plan, involved Heath and his counterparts around the state, conversation with community colleges, the research institute presidents. So there's a big component of the state plan that deals with education and workforce development. So that obviously is also a regional issue. When we talk about economic development partners, education is way up there at the top of that list. So, and a lot of that work's already started. The alignment through K through 12, through the university system, with what the state sees and what the region sees as economic development opportunities is already something that is underway. the signature academies up here, the career and technical academies, the focuses in the high schools, where universities now are hiring, are in alignment with the economic development opportunities that we see. So, and that's just on the education side. The workforce development side, Dieter is also aligning around what we're doing at a state level and what we'll do around regional levels. Their economics department is realigning around the 7 sectors. They are structuring business councils, or what they're calling sector councils, to connect industry and their workforce needs to what Dieter and the community colleges do in workforce development. So all of those things are a part of both the state and regional plans and are already underway.
And then on the tax question, regardless of where a personal individual feels about taxes in this state, is there going to be any discussion about potentially legislation that's going to move forward as far as diversifying that base from this group?
That will not be a part of the state economic development plan, no.
Why was that decision made? Just curious, since the Brookings Institute report focused so much on that issue regarding diversification of the tax base.
That is, in our mind, a legislative and governor-led conversation that will happen in 2013. At that point, we may have some amount of input on that. But in our role in economic development right now, we just didn't feel like that was appropriate.
And then my last question would be on the, just following up on Commissioner Brennernitz and his question about the 2 economic development commissions, essentially. What is the state's position on that? Because in the Target 2010 report, it talked about how we had a fragmented message, too many economic development commissions throughout the state. So is that going to be the approach, to have the 2 for Northern Nevada?
Well, I'll answer that question from 2 directions. One is that we are going to go through an RFP process. We are going to give anyone out there who wants to apply the opportunity to do so. So we don't want to prejudge that. On the other hand, and coming from the other direction, one of the things we want to do in economic development is deal with the reality of the situation, both from an economic standpoint, from a structural standpoint, and those concerns existed a year ago. And most of the people in this room have done a lot of work over the past year to make sure that's history and not our future. And that, I think, has been very effective. So to me, as the regional conversation that's going on right now would indicate that those 2 economic development authorities should be appointed regional development authorities. There seems to be tremendous community support for that. The idea that we would have 1 instead of 2 doesn't seem to have community support in either of those areas. And just merging 2 groups together so that you feel good about having 1 organization, if it doesn't work, it isn't going to be effective. So Rob and Mike have worked terrifically well together. I think they have a very solid plan on how to make that work, how to capitalize on the strengths of each of the organizations, how to deal with issues that cross borders. And to me, that's a very viable plan. We may see other alternatives over the next few months, but I think the one that is moving forward looks great.
Thank you.
Ms. Reddy.
Thank you, Ms. Jung. Focusing back on EDON. I was intrigued by the list of 11 things that RDAs are supposed to do in your comments, saying that we haven't been particularly effective in doing those in the past. And I guess my question is, I also appreciated your description of strategic planning and the fatigue that's associated with that. My concern is that in our community there may be some fatigue with economic development initiatives too, and perhaps some skepticism. When I look at these 11 items and what's been done in this community, I appreciate the site infrastructure intelligence and the business recruiting being highlighted, but what I can say, having lived here and been involved for the last several years, is Target 2010 was a significant effort towards a regional strategic plan that brought in an outside consultant that it was of a similar level to the Brookings Institute that identified 6 target industries and said we should do clusters and said we should not have so many factions. And basically, there wasn't a whole lot new under the sun in this report that we didn't hear when we were doing the 2010 report. If you look at business retention and expansion, there was a huge community effort a number of years ago called Business Builders, where hundreds of volunteers literally got involved with going and talking to our existing businesses and surveying them and talking to them about what would keep them in our community. And, you know, that got great community engagement. I still remember the Can Do Party, where we rebranded our region as a positive can do, and I've got the little ball for my antenna that I can pull out and show you. So without going down every single one of these steps, and no disrespect to, you know, all of those prior efforts, because I think that they were strong, they were well-intentioned, but they didn't clearly get us where we needed to be. What's different? How is this different than what we've done before? Because there have been a lot of high-quality, focused efforts in this community, I believe, and we haven't been able to do it. So what's different?
I think what's different is community attitude. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when the Target 2010 plan was done, things were kind of happening already. And the train was moving, and everyone says, well, there's the train. And despite the worries that the train would stop at some point or the party would end, there wasn't the energy, there wasn't the concern, there wasn't the 25,000 unemployed, there wasn't the kids coming out of our university that don't have a chance for a job because there is no job here. Now that attitude has changed, and what I sense is a community that's ready to do something. And so as we go forward, Target 2010 is a fantastic base. If you look at the entrepreneurial piece of that, I looked at that and said, yeah, we still need to do all these things. Pretty good start point. We don't need to go back and start from square one. We've got a pretty good plan that was written 5 years ago that said, here's what you need to do to move your entrepreneurial ball forward. So let's do them. So the difference now is rather than a plan, we need an action plan. Rather than telling everyone to do it, we need to tell one person to do it. And that person either does it to standard or doesn't, and there's some metrics there that we report out to the community and say, you know, we're doing okay here, we're not doing so well there, and we need more resources, or we need more time, or we need this or that. So really, I think the difference is take the materials we have, use that base, be more focused on where we're going from here, and then set out those metrics that will detail. The state has some metrics that will align behind, and some of our own metrics that will detail what we're doing, and then actually measure those results and say, okay, are you doing it or are you not? And if not, why not? And what do we adjust? And at the end of the day, just like a business, you will achieve success or you won't. And in our mind, it's time to achieve success in real terms and less in the planning terms. So I think the difference again is attitude. We have a lot of people that want to make this happen, make things happen, and a little bit more focus with a little bit clear identification of those metrics that will say, here's what you need to do. So a year from now, if I'm standing here and talking about planning, then you need to fire me. If we don't have metrics, and if we don't have outcomes, and if we haven't achieved anything, then I think we've let this community down.
Ms. Zadra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hill,
Steve, you had something?
If I could just add to Mike's answer, which I think is accurate. And I was in the construction material supply business with John here until about 4 months ago. And I was at an event down in Las Vegas in December where UNLV presented the outlook for the economy going forward. And 400 people in the room. Dr. Brown, who runs the Center for Business and Economic Research down there, gave about a half-an-hour presentation, asked for about a half an hour of question and answers after that. Every question, no offense to these industries, I was in one of them, but every question was about gaming and construction. And I think what needs to be, part of what needs to be different is we need to look at this list of opportunities and start having community conversations around those topics. We all did well because of gaming or because we were in gaming or certainly in construction. And that's where our economy was generated, and it's where our focus has been until recently. That's not going to be the future. So we do have a different future ahead of us. Gaming, mining, agriculture will continue to be a part of the foundation of the economy going forward, but that is not going to be where growth and a vibrant economy is generated. So we need to start having conversations, community conversations around what do we do with healthcare? How can we generate 2,000 jobs in healthcare and provide better healthcare for our communities, or more healthcare? I don't mean to denigrate the healthcare that we get now, but more. What can we do in geothermal? How can we help Chris Barton, what she's doing at the Reno Tahoe Airport to reach the Far East? How can we leverage on the fact that we're right next to California in IT, or in warehousing and distribution, or in manufacturing? These are all real opportunities that we need to have specific conversations about in the community, and we need to bring the folks who are the leaders in those industries into the conversation that typically has primarily been leaders in gaming and construction and development in the past. So that I think is a part of what needs to change going forward.
Ms. Sadler.
Thank you. And I absolutely am excited that we're having this conversation this morning. For the last many years at the Reno planning level, I've certainly been sharing that this is the most critical thing that the city could take on, and really the region. And we may be just a bit premature having this conversation since we haven't heard from Rob yet, to kind of give us the rest of that picture. So I hope we get there pretty quickly. And so the question really will apply to you as well, Rob, when you make your presentation. Kind of spins off of Julia's question. What makes it different? From my perspective, it really is no different than 92 when I first became involved with the CED representing its marketing efforts. There isn't much different in any of these reports than my firm identified back in 1992. So what really will make it different? And I propose to you that it really will take more at the policy level. So you need to tell us, as the policy-making boards, how and what we need to do to play a much larger role and envelop that partnership to an even greater degree. We need to hear from you what you need from us, and we need to bring you our expectations as well. So what do you need from us as policymakers to make this happen?
Well, that's probably a long list that we will develop. I can tell you, I spent some time in Mayor Martini's office on Friday. Was it Friday? Talking about how do we help knock down some of these regulatory walls and be more business friendly. One of our greatest advantages from a marketing perspective is speed to product, or speed to market. And the more permits and rules and regulations and inspectors you throw in front of a company, the harder it is. The beauty of that is we compare ourselves to California. No matter how bad we get, we look pretty darn good. But we're not just comparing ourselves to California anymore. Companies are looking throughout the West, and a lot of these states have gotten their act together. So there are things we can do better, and we will certainly bring those forward as we did with the city of Sparks. If there are specifics, and back to the retention effort of the past, this will be a little bit different. There will be a economic development professional knocking on the door and talking to CEO and finding a way to help that company grow and expand, as opposed to the visit piece, which is really important, and the companies need to know we love them, but they also need our help. And they're not going to tell a council member or mayor how screwed up they are, but they'll tell us what's stopping them from growing, what's stopping them from adding or expanding, and then we can carry the mail back to you, and you can help us keep that company. So the whole retention piece is incredibly important in keeping what we have. Clearly a priority, something we haven't had to worry about nearly as much in the past. And I'll tell you that as we go forward, as a region, there's a lot of growth opportunity as well on the entrepreneurial side. And we mentioned education. I mean, part of our product, and as economic developers, we sell a product. You'll see my piece coming in the paper in the next couple of days that talks about the product piece. We're selling a product that includes an educated workforce. That's the top priority of most businesses, and if the education system isn't working, then our job it just got tremendously tougher. And you put in a higher education piece, and I'll tell you, the team we have here on board on higher education is top notch. and they're ready to adjust to the needs of the employers, that team is something we've got to work more closely with as an economic development agency. And in fact, we will bring on a position, a VP of entrepreneurial growth and university liaison, that will help us as an organization help the higher education institution working with our employers. So there's a lot of things we've got to do differently as we go forward.
As a follow-up to that, Mr. Mayor, at our last Shared Services Committee meeting a week or two ago, we are at a point where we're potentially looking at the next steps for that subcommittee to address. And I proposed at that subcommittee level that it really be specifically related to economic development and not necessarily the benefit of some of our support services and administrative services like HR or purchasing. And I really am hoping that our staffs have at least got you on their list to talk to in identifying, is that something that we really can do as our next step from the Shared Services Committee, specifically as it relates to the enterprise fund and planning and development within our operations, because I absolutely agree with you. There are way too many roadblocks that our operations put into place and some of our policies put into place, and we do need to streamline those and to have a common link between them. So I hope that staff is hearing that, because we're going to be getting that report back at Shared Services at our next meeting.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Kazmierski, you kind of talked about this briefly in your strategic plan. Did I hear you say measured goals? That in the plan there will be some type of litmus? I mean, we'll be able to tell we're making progress towards a particular area?
Absolutely.
In my thinking, if you don't have some type of progression, you don't know if you're succeeding or failing. You can pass all the laws you want. If there's no way to measure it, then we don't know whether we won or lost. So I hope
like
that's
business.
part of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just
Thank
like
you.
a business, you set your outcomes and you build a strategy, and then you measure your success as you go forward.
Ms. Clark.
In our conversation about education, I mean, and I'm going to brag because obviously I'm representing the group that has done a tremendous amount of work over the last 3 years in raising the standard in K-12 education, doing exactly what we need to do to entice people to come into the Reno Sparks area and do business. And our part, we're still working on it. There's lots of room to go, but we're making tremendous efforts in trying to build that workforce from kindergarten on so it can go into the college system and come out as a skilled workforce. Unfortunately, kind of based on what one of the questions was before about looking at the taxes, it's eventually all going to fall apart if we can't go as a community and as a geographical area down there to the legislature and get a tax base that's diversified that supports it. So no matter what we do, and we have spent a tremendous effort in doing everything that we can about bringing reforms, eventually it's going to come to a screeching halt if we as a community don't go down there as a whole and indicate that we need support that very basic, as well as the city and county as well.
Well, I won't comment on taxes, but I will say I was at the superintendent's presentation last week, and it scared the hell out of me.
Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things that have come up in that regional jobs team. One question I have for you is, EDON now going to be the home for job creation? Is that going to be the thrust of what you are pursuing? Because what we've realized is that there really is no home for that. There's not an agency that is what they do. So I'm wondering if EDON is retooling itself in light of that.
EDON has one focus: primary job creation. A primary job brings wealth into the region as opposed to retail. So we'll leave the retail, which is very important, and some of the other industries. There are people that have a lead in working with that sector, but the primary employer, the company that exports their wealth, we work to attract them. We'll have a team focused on attracting bringing those teams in. We'll have the retention, workforce, expansion team that'll work on what's here right now and make sure that they succeed and grow. And then we have an entrepreneurial university liaison team that will really just connect the dots, because there's a lot of great agencies and organizations pushing in different directions. If we could align those up a little bit, I think we could have a lot more success in growing jobs as well.
Okay, and then a related question or suggestion, actually. You have your university liaison. Another area that we discovered that isn't addressed in the school system is how to be an entrepreneur. And perhaps you should be working with K through 12 to go into these 8th grade classrooms and say, so you think you want to start a business, this is the way you do it. There isn't that component, and I think that is tragically missing there. As you know, everything isn't a college education anymore, and most people today, especially with the downturn of the economy, have really turned to this entrepreneurship, and I think that's what's going to get us out of a lot of the trouble that we're in as a region and as a state. So I would suggest that this university liaison also liaison with the school district as well.
That's a great thought.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? All right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Cashel, we still have Rob Hooper who's going to do a brief presentation regarding NNDA.
Okay. Rob, we should have brought you up front to let you answer the questions.
I was kind of enjoying myself back there, quite honestly.
I thought you were. I thought I saw you.
But good morning, everybody. This is quite the austere group of leaders. I didn't know what to say mayors, councilmen, commissioners. I'll just say leadership. I'm happy to be here with you today. Thank you for this opportunity. This has been a very robust and exciting conversation I've been hearing. And I've met with a lot of you folks individually, and we've had a lot of talks over the last year as we went through AB 449. And now as we go through the implementation, here we are. So it's exciting days to be a part of economic development in northern Nevada. Now, I had a PowerPoint. Was that sent up here, do you know? Or if not, I can live without it. So I'll move on. I see a lot of blankness on this one. I've been doing this now for 3 years, as some of you know. I got drafted into this deal. I never thought I'd be doing anything like this in my whole life. Was asked to come into NNDA and turn around a failed organization. Shortly after I started on this journey, T. Michael Brown, who at that time was the county manager for Douglas County, asked me to come down and meet with him in Minden. And I went down there and went into his office, and he has a boardroom table set up. Pretty good sized table, about the half the size of this table right here. And on the table, he'd found every study that had been done on this region for the last 20 years. And I tell you, it was about 6 to 8 inches high, and it covered the whole table. It was amazing. And he said, what do I do with all this? You know, we've got study after study after study after study that we've had. Of course, none of them have been implemented very well, but we've got the studies. And so he encouraged me not to go off on the planning and studying area. Let's just get the rubber on the road here. He then hired Karen Craig, who lives here in Reno, to come down and harmonize all those various reports. And it was interesting because they all said the same thing. And it was commented earlier that there was the study done here, the 2010 study. We did the Northern Envision study, which, by the way, were by the same group. And they were pretty much the same study at the end of the day. And not a lot of difference there between what we got out of Brookings. So when I saw a year ago with AB 449 that we were going into another study period, I thought, oh boy, here we go again. All right. And now we're looking at doing more planning and more regional planning. And I'm going, okay, now what are we doing? But, you know, I got to hand it to the Governor's Office of Economic Development and to Steve Hill, because they're taking a really neat approach on this go-around. And the encouragement that I have is it's more on bringing all this together into an actionable plan. There's more emphasis on the implementation piece. We're real lucky in the north here that we've done all these studies, because you go to other parts of the state, they've never done anything like that. So we have a lot to draw on. So I had to look at this as an opportunity for us to move quickly through the first phase of the planning session and say, okay, all this stuff's been said. Do we all agree this is what we are and who we are and where we're going? Let's all get that confirmation. Because I have to tell you, there's a lot of little groups running around. And they're all doing a little bit different twists on the whole deal. All right? That fractions our community. It fractions where we're going. It takes money out of the public side, takes money out of the private side, and it's all kind of like cats going in different directions. We need to get all those cats going the same way. And everybody on the field's got to know what their position on the field is and what their responsibilities are. And we have to know what our strategic goal is. We have to know how we're going to measure it, because you can't manage it if you can't measure it. And it's not to be a na-na-na-na moment. It's that let's tweak the dials as we're going along, because nobody's going to get it perfect out of the gates. Okay? So the way that I believe we need to approach this regional planning process is the way we're approaching it. First off, we've got to get what I would consider to be the two major players in agreement. And there's been a lot of talk over the last few years about this big rift between NNDA and EDON. Well, I'm here to tell you, Dave, there never really was a big rift. There was a lot of people saying there was, but it really wasn't, okay? And since my partner here, Mr. Kazmierski, has come on board, there was zero. The analogy I used to my staff last week is, imagine this. Mike and I just ran into the First National Bank in Salina, Kansas. We robbed it. We're in the middle of the street. We're back to back, and the posse's around us, and nobody's coming between us. And that is the promise that he and I have together. Swear to God. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to do regional planning efforts together. It is one big region called Northern Nevada. There are two subregions within there. There's the greater Reno Tahoe, which EDON and Mr. Kazmierski are focused on. And then there's what we call the Sierra region, which was a name that I came up with because I've got 6 different county commissioners I regularly go to, and they are all different. And they all want different things. And we're trying to herd all that together into one kind of regional impact approach. Now, together, Mr. Kazmierski and I make a pretty awesome team with the two organizations. I think we can kick butt and take no prisoners. I really do. And we already are, and we are working together. You may have read in the Nevada Business Magazine about this show, the MD&M show in Anaheim, and it stated in there that one of the problems was that EDON had a booth, NNDA had a booth, and NV Energy had a booth, and we're all down there doing different things. Well, that wasn't really true then, and it's certainly not true now. We have one booth. We have one team. Danny Campos, who's our business development director, and Stan are working together on that along with Brad Woodard and NV Energy. And we have Eric Grimes over from Churchill. We're all one team. I think we have, 12 or 15 people going down for that show. It's the largest manufacturing show on the West Coast. They've taken every booth. They've got a number on it. They're handing out assignments. They know what they're doing. We've got follow-up plans. And it's not arguing over who gets to do what. It's arguing, not at all. It's planning as to when we get a client, what's the best thing we can do to hedge our bet for success in making those Nevada companies. We're working together. There's a display that's going to be opening at the airport here on February 20th. It's going to be a display where they had the Olympic display down by baggage claim there, and it's all going to be about made in Nevada, who knew? It's going to be all about manufacturing in Nevada, and we have various manufacturers from throughout northern Nevada that are going to be displayed there. Mr. Kazmierski and I plan to execute our written agreement at that grand opening event because we're making this official. We're working together, and we're going to do it seamless. And the way that we're going to do this plan, again, is get out there and find out where all the different arrows are pointing, try to get everybody identified onto the same strategic direction, and then work together at kind of a high level as your economic development agencies to try to get everybody to work together. The expected results of our planning is, first off, a well-articulated and clear vision for our region, one that all stakeholders can sign on to and agree that it supports the objectives of the region and the Go-Ed State Plan. Number 2 is going to be the definition of the local subregion within the region, both by county and by community, where commonality of economic purpose can be articulated. And that's really important. The subregion of Yerington, for instance, is very different than the sub-region of Sparks. They're two different places. We're all northern Nevadans, but I don't think you'd be talking about the copper mine like they are out there right now. You know, it's a big deal for them. Just like the processing of ag products is a big deal. Not necessarily the focus of South Meadows. All right, so they're very different in that brand level. Number three, a complete assessment of regional conditions, assets, and obstacles both for the Sierra region and for each local subregion as defined. What are those hurdles we have to get over and how are we going to take care of them? How to identify and articulate the biggest opportunities for economic growth in the region. This is really important. If you read where the state plan is going, it's looking for the big opportunities and have us all come together around those big opportunities. For instance, the largest cluster of manufacturing that we have in our northern region, frankly, is the aerospace and defense industry. And you really wouldn't know by doing a NAICS code search. For instance, Nevada Heat Treating up in Mount House, you look on their NAICS code and they're a metal heat treating company. When you go in there, you see that what they're treating are aerospace parts, weaponry systems, things like that. They're an aerospace defense company. They just don't appear that way. So we're organizing a group throughout the region to go into every building and say, what do you do here? Who do you sell to? Who do you buy from? If there was another company in the region here that's not here now that'd make your life easier, what would that be? So we can get some clear and legitimate targets for business development. In that particular case, the ones we've already done, for instance, the aerospace industry, common denominator, if anybody knows a NADCAP certified plater, we don't have one in the region and we need one really bad. We also need a NADCAP certified grinder. NADCAP certification is what you have to be certified in order to sell to Boeing and Lockheed and Airbus. We don't have those two things. They're sending them off to California right now to get that work done. That's money we could be having right here. We're going to have a 3-year plan. In fact, we're taking it out to 5 years. The plan is going to also be driven right now, particularly in the rurals more, by a program of USDA, which is called SET. Stronger Economies Together is what that acronym stands for. It's an interesting process that USDA is funding. The state is also putting that into the plan. We're working with the Western Nevada Development District. The SET will produce an updated consolidated economic development strategy as recognized by EDA and will be used for grant purposes for SBA. So we're trying to end up with one plan, not two, through that process. We're going to be looking at transportation. We're going to be looking at where our gaps are, metrics. We have to come up with measurable ways to manage our progress, and we have to have a reportable way. We're putting together a back-end system that's going to be available by login in various levels of what you can see, so that our county commissions and our city councils can actually go in there on a day-to-day basis in real time and say, hey, whatever happened to that company that was in town, they can go on and look. So we want to come up with a real high level of visibility with our boards, because it's not a matter of giving you guys entertainment. It's more a matter of inviting your participation. Okay? The question was asked earlier about policy and what can everybody do to set the policies correct. It's through participation that you learn about that. Lyon County, I hate to say it, but a few years ago, most of your developers would tell you that they're just, frankly, a pain to have to deal with. All right? Now, I think that's because when you brought clients there, they weren't real sure about what the rules were. So we instituted these very broad-based roundtables. And when we bring a client to town, we put a roundtable together, and just about everybody that's a part of a department in that county comes together for that meeting. We brought a Fortune 40 company in, and they were really impressed. We had 25 people from the county and the cities there. We had Central Line Fire, we had the school systems, we had everybody there. Any question they wanted to know, they could get an answer just like that. And then everybody laid out, here's the rules. When you come here, here's our policies. We'd rather have you know what they are now instead of surprise you later. And it worked. That company's moving in. Took out one of our 185,000 square foot buildings. And they could have gone to Utah. They liked the fact that we were upfront and honest about what we did. And then out of that, the county saw some areas of policy that were standing in the way of companies, and they're changing that now. You can't change them on the fly. You got to be involved and know what's going on. And we've got, I could keep going down this list, but there's like 15 different things I think we're going to get out of this regional plan. Now, we have a broad-based economic development program. 3 years ago, I was handed the 8 building blocks of economic development by Mr. Skaggs, who was the director of the Commission of Economic Development at that time. And we were required to put together a plan and report on it quarterly and annually in order to get funded and get a quarterly check. So we have 3 years of experience of working within that framework and creating the objectives and goals and measuring that. When AB 449 came along, it kind of took that up to the next step, took it up to the next level, okay? But we're already in that game, so it's a matter of just us kind of rearranging how we label our different programs. So it didn't really do anything but enhance where we're going. So at the end of the day, I'm very happy with where AB 449 has taken us. We continue to be in support of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. I think their position on allowing us to regionalize and organize within the region, promoting the partnership between NNDA and EDON, and letting us all work together shoulder to shoulder. I think they're doing the right thing. So I could go on. I could talk about education, infrastructure, asset, but looks like everybody's getting hungry or something, so I'm going to shut up and say, is there anybody got any questions?
We're not feeding anybody.
All right.
Anybody got any questions? Mr. Guston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate your presentation very much and the other presentations, and I understand all the importance of the elements of education, of understanding business, understanding incubation in business, et cetera. What I didn't hear, and I wonder where it fits in, and maybe you can tell me, whether you're in the Reno-Tahoe region or you're in the rural region or whatever it turns out to be, I hear from people that are in the real estate industry, that are moving businesses to town. The one thing or two things that people are looking for are lifestyle, livability, environmental advantages. We have all those. We have those things. Where do they fit in the scheme of things that you're talking about when you got that CEO at the table, or you're visiting with them about moving part of their business, all of their business? Where does that element come into play? Because it is important to us, and what I am hearing, as I said, from real estate people, that's one of the things that these young companies are looking for is lifestyle advantages. Where do they fit in?
I think that's, lifestyle is always one of the things on the table. We're always very proud to show the mountains and the hills and the lake and the hiking. That's always a part of our pitch. When it gets right down to it, it's the number crunching that makes the decision. They have to look at their bottom lines. They're reportable to their shareholders and their boards. I don't find, in my experience, that companies make their final decision based on whether they can go skiing here or not. They like it. In fact, we have a company that's in town this week. It's a German company that between us and southeast New Mexico, that was a big factor. All right, but really what it came down to was that New Mexico offered them $500,000 cash to move there, but when they did the spreadsheet, that expired after 12 years, then it started costing them a whole lot more to be there than here. So that's where their decision's coming down to.
Recently, there was a company that was one of the largest yogurt manufacturers in the world looking at northern Nevada.
Chobani.
It didn't end up here. It went to Idaho. Why did that fail?
Yeah, it was because we didn't have enough cows. They required so much more cows than we had. It was just not practical. Number one, it was the milk supply. You know, we worked very closely with the Dairy Commission and with the dairymen in Nevada. Had a lot of meetings. We just could not convince them that the herd could be ramped up fast enough to meet their production demands. That was really the only reason, because they would have preferred to have been here because the shipping cost was lower out of here. And when you spreadsheet it all out, if we'd had the cows, we would have had them.
Interesting, because you can go online. I was interested in that. You can go online and buy cows. You can actually do that. You can check the market. But I understand, and I appreciate your answer.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thanks for letting me off on that one.
Thank you. So, as you've heard, there's essentially this track going along where the two regional economic development authorities are working collaboratively to develop economic development plans that will be responsive to the direction that the state is asking us to move forward on. There's another track that's involved, and that's identifying within the region those partners that want to be part of, I think the term that's been used, it's been copied obviously, as part of the Coalition of the Willing. And so back in November for the Recharge Nevada event, there was a statement of intent that was drafted, and basically it's non-binding, but it's a statement that a local government or an entity like the Chamber, for example, wants to be part of this Coalition of the Willing. The county has taken action on it. Their county commission has adopted the statement of intent. It will be the focus of the agenda at the event that's going to occur on February 24th. And as part of the meeting this morning, it's been agendized that if the city councils of Reno and Sparks want to adopt that statement today, you have the opportunity to do so.
Council members?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move for the City of Reno adoption of the statement.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.
City of Sparks?
Mr. Mayor Martini, I make a motion to adopt the statement of intent for Recharge Nevada.
Second. Have a motion by Mr. Lawson, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously.
That concludes this item on your agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Very fine job. This time, we'll move to item 7, presentation update on Washoe County School District Strategic Plan.
Good morning, distinguished mayors, elected officials. What a pleasure it is to come before you and present to this joint governance board about the progress and the direction of the Washoe County School District. It's interesting following my friends and colleagues from economic development because the whole process of trying to decide on a plan, a direction, setting those targets, goals, and indicators and moving forward is exactly what we've been very busy doing the last few years. And as I appreciate Steve and Mike saying, there has to be a sense of urgency to this. The Reverend Martin Luther King said there has to be a fierce urgency of now to do important work. And I can assure you, having had an opportunity to work with Mike and Steve, the Washoe County School District is part of that coalition of the willing, not only to improve the quality of education for the 64,000 children that we have the honor and privilege of serving, but also to see our vital role in economic development in Northern Nevada and across our state. And so what I want to do very quickly, and as you know, I do speak quickly because we're doing a lot, and speaking about the Martin Luther King, he said that people begin to die when they fail to speak about things that are important. And in the Washoe County School District, in terms of talking about improving education, it's not just speaking about it, but it's actually doing those things that are critically important. And so I want to try to update you on 3 years of reform in a very short period of time. So since I don't have the clicker, I'm trying to give hand signals to, there we go. Recently, I had the opportunity to update the entire community about the state of education in Washoe County School District. And I spoke about our Secretary of Education in the United States, Arne Duncan. And he gave an address last year entitled The New Normal. And the concept was that in this time of economic challenge across the entire country, facing all public and private sectors, there's an incredible need for school districts to improve the quality of education across the United States, to continue to improve, to be globally competitive, so that our children can have the same promise of a better future that we all wanted as we grew up. That's a basic commitment in the United States, that we want to provide that better tomorrow for the next generation. And so in this new normal, we are going to have to improve the quality of education across all 15,000 school districts in our country at a time when we are probably in the short term going to have less resources. So how do you do it? How do you improve the quality of education with less resources? When the Washoe County School District, we believe that's done through innovation and creativity and tremendous personal will to be about every child by name and face to graduation. And so it begins with our elected officials. When people say, what was one of the things that drew me to Washoe County, to Reno, it was a board of trustees that said, we need to be different. We need to be different for the sake of being better. And it was their willingness to start this process of reform that drew me. Their leadership, their vision, their passion for every child that we serve has been recognized recently throughout our country. They were the recipients, one of the 3 final school districts out of 15,000 to be named a finalist for the Council of Urban Boards of Education Award of Excellence. Recently, one of our trustees was selected to that national board in recognition of the work going on in Washoe County School District. And this board of trustees was recently recognized as the Nevada School Board of the Year. So leadership matters, and I want to see if you'll join me in congratulating them on their leadership. And so it's interesting hearing my friends and colleagues talk about the need to create a strategic plan. One of the first things they tasked me with was taking our current strategic plan, saying, does it need an overhaul, or do we need to completely start again? And we decided we needed to start completely again. We needed to talk about where we were going, what were we doing well, what did we need to improve upon, and how were we going to engage the community. And I appreciate Mike's comments. You can't take a long time to do that. We went out to our community. We talked to thousands of citizens, leaders, many of you, our principals, teachers, support staff, civic and community leaders, and we created a plan that was built around the need to improve education and to be a part of the need to diversify the economy in Northern Nevada. We saw a tremendous opportunity. Clearly, we saw that we were now at the point when the resources were going in a direction that was not something that we certainly supported. However, we also saw an opportunity to improve the priority of education across Nevada. I appreciate Steve's comments about the Nevada of where we've been. And when you have gaming and construction as your 2 primary vehicles of economic force, the truth is that you don't need a college-educated workforce, and then there's even some questions about how much you need a high school-educated workforce. That is the Nevada that was. And although gaming and construction will always be vital to our state, if we are truly going to diversify the economy of this great state, if we are going to bring in new businesses and keep the businesses we have, we must recognize that the workforce needs of tomorrow are a workforce that's going to require every child to graduate from high school and many of them to have some sort of post-secondary opportunities. So despite the challenges, this school board and this school district have seen amazing opportunities to prioritize education as a civic need. And so we did create a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is not a visionary document in itself. It is a very visionary document that has goals, targets, indicators. It puts tremendous accountability on a timeline of what has to happen and what is happening currently in our school district to ensure that we improve the quality of education for every single child. And we call it our business plan. We're very proud of that. And just like a good business is going to have, you have an elevator speech, and I say this all the time. The key for success of an elevator speech is by the time you get on that elevator and you're trying to explain what you're trying to do, by the time you get to the 12th floor, can you tell somebody what the basic impetus of your business is? In the Washoe County School District, it takes us 1 floor. We get on the elevator with you, and by the 1st floor, we can tell you we are about every child by name and face to graduation, and that graduation is to a highly skilled career and college-level readiness. Our strategic plan has 5 major goals, and those 5 major goals are critically important. Each links to the other. They are very symbiotic, and the success of one goal is the success of all goals. And I want to update you on where we are with our strategic plan and to give you a reason of why we believe it is so important. So our first goal is to ensure academic success, and if you see on this slide in front of you is 100 of our children. These are 100 students at Corbett Elementary School, one of our elementary schools that faces huge challenges with poverty, mobility, and English as a second language. But they're doing amazing things. And so as we look at these 100 students, and if our first goal is about ensuring academic success for every single one of those children, then even after the first year of our strategic plan implementation, when we increased graduation rates from 56% to 63%, if we had stopped there and said we're content with that success, and that 1-year jump was one of the fastest jumps in the country for large school districts, then we'd have to accept losing 37 of those children. That's not good enough. That is not good enough in the Washoe County School District. So we need to do more, and we are doing more. And that new normal that the Secretary of Education speaks about, it is about looking for creativity and innovations with the resources we have, taking the resources we have and doing the very best we can to serve our children. And so there's a number of different things we've implemented. We know that early childhood is a driver for educational improvement. Every dollar we spend on early childhood programs, there's $7 that the community reaps in the future. A lack of need to have remedial programs at K-12 and higher ed. Prisons that don't need to be built. Social services that don't need to be provided because students are graduating highly skilled career and college ready. So despite cutting $87 million out of our budget over the last 2 years alone, in Washoe County School District today, we have more students in full-day kindergarten and more students in pre-K, and next year there will be even more. We were one of the first large school districts in the country to adopt the new Common Core standards. The standards that we teach to matter. They matter a lot. And so rather than backing off and saying we're going to improve by lowering the standards and therefore making it look better, we were the first large school district in Nevada to say that we were going to adopt these Common Core standards, raise the standards for all children because we believe that a rising tide lifts all ships, and every child in Washoe County deserves high standards, and that's what we've committed to. We also realize that it's about every child. It's not just our children who are behind or children that are right on the pathway, but those students who also come to us accelerated. And many times as we traveled across the school district, we would hear from parents saying, what are you doing for my gifted child? What are you doing for my child that's already accelerated? And they were right. We weren't doing enough and we needed to do more. And so we looked for efficiencies. We looked at the gifted and talented model at the elementary school where we were putting kids on a bus for an hour a week, impacting their instructional time, and realizing that was incredibly inefficient. So what we did was we changed that model, had teachers go to the elementary schools to deliver gifted instruction at the elementary school, kept the kids in school, used those savings to create 4 new GT Magnet programs that our gifted and talented parents and children have been celebrating. We're very proud of those type of efficiencies. We have been having a lot of conversations this morning about that tie to economic development. And in Washoe County School District, we realize that we have a role in that we have to make sure that we're not just getting kids to walk across the stage and get a diploma, but that diploma is a passport for a better tomorrow. And that means quality jobs in the future. And so what we've decided to do is to have what we call Academy Signature Programs. These Academy Signature Programs are linked directly to the workforce development needs of Nevada of the future. I'm very proud of, as we started to try to plan for these Academy Signature Programs, the Brookings Report had not yet come out. And yet when the Brookings Report came out, our Academy Signature Programs are tied directly to what's in that report. So Academies of Sustainable Energy, Academies of Biomedicine, Academies of Aerospace and Robotics, and I can go on business finance and entrepreneurship. Again, these are Academy Signature Programs that will be offered at every single one of our high schools, and then students will have public school choice to go to the Academy Signature Program that speaks to their level of desire and interest and need. And so we have one of those academies this year. We'll launch 7 more, and by the following year, every single high school will have at least one, if not more, of these Academy Signature Programs. As we talk about being about every child by name and face to graduation, despite some incredible increases in graduation, we still have many students that we have not reached. I thank all of you that have walked with us in September to go door to door to ask students to come back, to get them on a personalized plan of progress, and to get them back into our public education system. But we needed to go deeper. And so we got a huge federal grant called the High School Success Grant. Amongst many things that we've done with that grant is to create 5 re-engagement centers. These engagement centers are spread throughout our district in places that you would expect to find students who had dropped out of school, students who are now called vanished students. They're at the Boys and Girls Club, the Children's Campus, homeless shelters, where we can reconnect with these students, get them back into public education, get them a diploma so that they can be employable in the future. And since we launched these in May, 340 students have returned to our public education system. So our second goal, if we're going to ensure academic success for every child, we have to make sure that every child has an amazing teacher and every school is led by a fantastic principal. As you see, again, 2 of our beautiful students that we have the honor and privilege of serving in the Washoe County School District, these 2 students start off right at the same place by the time they get to 2nd grade. If all their test scores are putting them on a relatively equal playing field, then what decides how they move forward or what causes them to go behind? If that little girl gets an amazing teacher and the little boy gets an ineffective teacher, and within 1 year, they are now 2 years separated in their academic success. If that happens for another year, where she gets a great teacher and he gets a less than satisfactory teacher, they are now 4 years behind after a 2-year time period. And if that crime occurs again where she gets a great teacher and he gets a less than effective teacher, then he probably will be one of the 1.2 million children who drop out of our public education systems across our country while she's on a pathway to get her diploma. We can't let that happen in the Washoe County School District. So we have committed to incredible human capital reform. Our school district is a leader recognized throughout the state and is now quickly becoming a leader across the country. And how do you create professional growth systems to hire the very best teachers and leaders, get them onboarded into the organization, provide professional development, create career lattices, be smart and efficient, and a pay-for-performance system that compensates the very best teachers and leaders. And then, yes, when we have teachers and principals who are not able to improve to the level where they are at least effective, then how do you separate? That's all part of our human capital reforms. And a matter of fact, the Washoe County School District is well represented on the governor's new Teacher and Leader Council with one of our teachers who is the vice chair, and I'm very honored as well to serve on that committee. And so we also have to make sure that we've got great principals in every school. We were one of 22 school districts selected for a federal or for a national grant that was about increasing a pipeline to effective principal preparation. We took that grant opportunity. We've now created the Washoe Academy of School Leadership, truly a new, innovative way to train the principals to create 21st century leaders for 21st century challenges. Our third goal, as we go back to those 100 students, recognizes that we have, as a state, only 58% of our citizens have a high school diploma. Only 30% have ever attempted any kind of post-secondary education. And so as we start to talk about in the Washoe County School District college and career readiness, we can't just speak the same way we spoke before. We can't use the same communication tools. We have to go deeper and better if we're really going to convey that message about the importance of education. And so if not, we have to be prepared to lose 70% of the children who have never had a parent who has, in fact, gone on to graduate and tried any sort of college. And again, that can't be. So we have incredibly diversified how we communicate to our public. We use Twitter, Facebook. We have gone in many innovative ways to connect with our populations that traditionally have felt underserved in the Washoe County School District. And I'm very proud of our communications team, who was just recognized for the National Leadership Through School Communications. And that's important. It shows our commitment to being and engaging the public in public education. And so we have reached out to partners all across the Washoe County School District. We have a Council for Excellence in Education who created the Me campaign. This Me campaign is a very simple concept. Education is important to every single citizen in Northern Nevada. And to tell you how important it is, the Me campaign was able to bring such people such as our great mayor of Reno and Sam Dene together to talk about one important thing: improving the quality of education. And they both look very cute in their Me shirts. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate you doing that for us. We have a new foundation. Perry Lee DiLoretto is the chair, Mashana Squag is the vice chair, but they have formed a foundation to support our important work with one idea, one purpose: help find additional funding to move our strategic plan forward. And then we also have created a parent university. We in Washoe County School District believe that parents are the first teachers of our children. To connect with our parents, when we have great parents working in collaboration with a school, there's no child that we cannot educate at high levels. So our parent university is 240 free classes spread throughout the school district, classes that our parents have said they need to build their capacity to work with us, and we're very excited about that. We have also engaged different providers to help us with business partnerships. We can't do this work alone. And so we've got to go much further than the traditional business partnership, where we ask a business to partner with us, we ask them for money, and they give us a check, and then we say we have a business partnership. We have needed to revision the business partnership so it's a symbiotic relationship. Good for the business, good for the school. Quite frankly, we probably need the human capital from our businesses more right now than the fiscal capital. And so we've worked with the Education Alliance and the Chamber to work on revisioning the business partnerships, and some of the work that's being created is now being replicated throughout the state and the rest of the country, and we're very proud of that. And then our partnership with higher education. We have got to be a great partner with higher ed. Higher ed needs to be a great partnership with us. And so we are working together in unprecedented ways. We have collaborated on data sharing. We have collaborated on transitioning students from K-12 to higher ed. And just to give you a very quick example, we know across the country that far too many students graduate from high school, go into college, needing remedial courses. That's not acceptable. So what we have done now is we have partnered with TMCC and UNR. We now provide, in the senior year, the AccuPlacer exam, which is the measure that they use to decide college readiness. We give that exam to our seniors in their senior year. We then take those students who say they're going on to college, and we provide remediation support so that when they go to higher education, they're not having to pay for remedial courses. The taxpayers aren't having to pay for remedial courses. That's happening right in the senior year, and just one of many, many partnerships that are happening between the institutions. Going back to our 100 students, we know that if students don't come to school ready to learn, if they don't come to school feeling safe and secure, then no matter how good the teaching and learning is, no matter how rich the academic programs are, they're going to struggle. And so we know after surveying last year, over 50% of our students said that at some point they had been a victim of bullying harassment in schools. And so we have to be very aggressive about combating that. In the Washoe County School District, we have one of the most aggressive anti-bullying campaigns in the country. Despite the fact that almost 80% of our students said they feel safe, we know that we need to go further than that to make sure that our students come to school and get enriched and engaged in the academic progress and learning. Additionally, we can move on. We can move on one more. We've got to have courageous conversations about race. We have a diversified student population. We have increasing numbers of students coming to us from different backgrounds, different cultures. We've got to accept that. We've got to embrace that. We've got to meet the needs of the learner, not ask the learner to switch to meet the needs of students that we've served in the past. Our decision and our vision of having courageous conversations about race, first with our school boards and our school leaders, then with our principals and now our teachers, will be a game changer to ensure we continue to improve academic success in the Washoe County School District. And then I heard someone talk about, are you setting targets? Well, in the Washoe County School District, I assure you we are. Every one of our goals, every one of our key leverage points has targets and indicators that we can go out to the community and say how we're doing. And so when we say we need to increase the number of students who get into accelerated courses, we need to set targets. And so we knew that with those 100 students, when we started our work, less than 30% were engaged in any sort of AP courses at the high school level. And so we have to accept that 70% will never have that opportunity to get those kind of accelerated courses. Again, not good enough. So our school board last year came out with an accountability policy. That accountability policy is very simple. Schools that are doing well, schools that are ahead of their targets, get increased autonomy and empowerment. Schools that chronically are failing to deliver on the targets and the delivery of service that they need to for our students need more direct supervision and support. We have created, or in the process of creating dashboards and scorecards. Those dashboards and scorecards are our way to go out in the community and let the community know how we're doing, so they can ask important questions about how their tax dollars are being spent and are they getting a return on investment, and we believe that they are. We have also worked with different organizations across the country to be more efficient. Yes, bring business practices into how we operate our school district. We partnered with groups training us on Lean Six Sigma and Six Sigma. We have worked with a group out of Houston called American Productivity Quality Control, or APQC, on process management. Why is this important? Because we're looking for efficiencies to invest back into our academic programs. So one example is, one of the basic things that we do in a school district is we hire teachers. Before we started our work with APQC, it took over 14 steps to hire a teacher. After we did our training with HR this past year, we got that down to 5 steps. Quicker, faster, more efficient, savings that we can reinvest in our academic programs. So what are the results? There's that saying, the old Wendy's commercial, where's the beef? A lot of good things we're trying to do, but is it getting results? And I assure you it is. For 2 years in a row, the Washoe County School District has seen increases on test scores, the only school district in Nevada to be able to do that, with the highest increases coming with students traditionally we have underserved. We have leveraged and we have put a lot of focus on increasing graduation rates. So our graduation rate previously, before our reforms, were 56%, had been that way for 5 years. After 1 year, we got that to 63%, and this past year, we got it to 70%. What I'm very encouraged about is that at every school we've seen graduation increases for 2 years, and that we've seen the highest graduation increases, again, with students that we've traditionally underserved. However, I always say that at 70%, which gets us now to the national average and some 15 points ahead of the state average, we still have 3 out of 10 students that we're not graduating, so we will continue to need to get better. And then we are getting more students into accelerated courses. We've almost doubled the number of kids in algebra by 8th grade, and we've almost doubled the number of students taking AP and IB courses their senior year. And so we do think that we're trying to get kids highly skilled, career, and college ready. We are facing a time of huge economic reform and a huge reform in education. There is much change coming out of Washington and out of Carson City, and we are trying to be ahead of that, not behind it. You may have heard there's a lot of reform going on around No Child Left Behind, and we believe that in the Washoe County School District, our strategic plan has put us in a place that we are tied directly to what the new revisions to that national reform is occurring and ahead of the reforms that are occurring in Carson City. Again, as an organization, we have to look at challenges and seek opportunities. One of the biggest challenges that we know that we're going to face over the next few years, as you have to deal with this all the time as well, is around budgets. And so over the last 5 years, we've cut over $123 million from our budget. This past year, we had to cut $51 million from our budget. And then this upcoming year, we face a $40 million deficit. And so this theme of having to do more with less resonates with us all the time, much as it does with you. We have to look ahead to FY14, which is when it gets even more daunting because for a number of different reasons, FY14 proposes to be one of the most challenging times in our Nevada history, where we face possibly an $80 million shortfall. And I know in public government sectors, you're looking at FY14 with those same kind of budget challenges as well. We wish it was just the operating budget that was causing challenges. We also have an operating budget. That's how we fund our teachers and academic programs. We also have capital budgets that allow us to renovate schools, build new ones when we need them, do basic maintenance, and infuse our schools with technology. We have only one way to do our capital budget, and that's through our rollover bond, heavily reliant on property taxes. And unfortunately, with what's happening with property taxes in the Washoe County District, we face being the only school district in Nevada that after this year will have no ability to generate capital funds. That's a huge issue. It's a huge challenge and something that we are engaging many, many partners with to discuss how we're going to leverage opportunities. What I say about our budget challenges is we are proud of the fact that we have increased productivity at a time when we've had declining inputs. But for anybody who suggests that this just proves that the budget cuts don't hurt, I would suggest instead of thinking that way, think of us like a business. And with a business that has taken efficiencies and improved productivity, if that was a business that had stocks for sale, you would want to buy that stock. And I would suggest the Washoe County School District is making a fierce case that we are a stock worth investing in. I was very proud 2 weeks ago that when Jeremy Guerrero, the noted economist from UNLV, came to speak at the WIN breakfast, he said that the Washoe County community should be proud of the Washoe County School District, that we're a full 5 years ahead of the rest of the state, and we have proven to be an investment worth investing into. And so we will continue to get better. Much of the innovations that we've been doing have been creativity and shared efficiencies, but there's also disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation about how we use time. So we're looking at our bell schedule and calendars so that we can use time better as a resource. And then there is technology. As you may remember, some of you may remember more so than some of us, that there used to be a time when you would have a teacher with a chalkboard. We've now gone to a 21st century concept of now we still have that same teacher in front of a classroom with an interactive whiteboard, but that's not really the technology solutions that we need to have for our children. Our students today are digital natives, and they are being taught by digital immigrants. And so the only time that we're denying them technology is at school, and then we wonder why they don't want to be at school. We have to embrace technology. We have to go away from the antiquated textbooks to a one-to-one learning device that can have small group opportunities for students to work directly with a teacher, to be able to do group projects on social networking, and then to be able to engage in a personal device with a curriculum online that will accelerate our highest level of learners and remediate those who are behind. And so we are very excited in the Washoe County School District. We know that we've come a long way very quickly. We know we've come a long way at a time of decline of resources. But as Trustee Clark says, we know that we have a far way to go. We know that we are in a time that education matters. It matters to increase the diversification of our economy. It matters because we've got to recognize that as a state right now, we are the third leading state to employ high school dropouts. We're the 50th state to employ students with a college degree. At a time when the workforce development needs across the future in the United States will require 70% of kids to not only have the high school diploma, but also to have some sort of post-secondary education, that can't be. We've got to increase it because the state of Nevada needs us for economic development to be better. But the most important reason that we have to improve education is for all the children that we serve. We serve 64,000 children. Every single one of those children deserve to get a diploma, to walk across the stage, to get a passport for a better tomorrow. We want to challenge our legislature to see the results coming out of Washoe County School District and not to see reading results that will lead them to decide how many prisons or how many police to have, but to have how many universities they need to build. Because in the Washoe County School District, we are about every child by name and face to graduation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Jones.
I don't really have a question, Mr. Mayor. I just want to tell Dr. Morrison, I just love your enthusiasm and your energy. You've really changed the culture already in Washoe County with these public-private partnerships. And also remind the people here at the dais, I think everybody here should be principal for a day. I'm an alumni of that. And there is nothing like it. I did Lois Allen Elementary School out in Sun Valley. It's a Title IV school, Title IX?
Title I.
Title I.
Yeah.
This is Title something. And to see what the learning that's going on there in spite of some major challenges that these children have just getting to school, let alone being ready to study and learn. So I just really appreciate what we've done. I love the academy idea. I was just visiting an old friend and city employee, Dabier Powell, in Tampa, Florida, and they have these same magnet or academies, and it's just incredible what these kids can start preparing themselves
Absolutely.
for. But I also say I think it needs to start in 8th grade entrepreneurship training and possibilities for kids to be able to dream that way.
Yeah. And I appreciate your comment. And actually, we are partnering with Junior Achievement to do exactly that.
Great.
Their partnership and their investment in our school district, we are infusing business and entrepreneurship skills directly into our curriculum and giving students that opportunity to start thinking ahead. You know, we always kind of want to protect our elementary and middle school kids and start focus, but if we start that late, then we're not getting them where we need to get them. And so that goes all the way not to 8th grade, but elementary school, then builds in middle school, and then really accelerates with the Academy Signature programs in high school. So we're already starting that way,
Great.
but we can do more.
I'm glad to hear that, and I just want to commend the trustees who have been such a progressive and strong board to empower you to take this leadership and to take this role here. You are a welcome addition, and I hope you stay forever.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions? Questions, Mr. President?
Just one, and thank you, Dr. Morrison, and ditto Commissioner Zhang's comments to the board and also to yourself. On the capital project, you had kind of skimmed over that quickly. You said we don't have the ability. Can you just, a couple things for another time. Can we get a list, maybe an email, to know what the what repairs are needed throughout Washoe County, those schools in disrepair? And secondly, can you just quickly elaborate on you had said Washoe County is in a unique situation in the fact that next year there wouldn't be money for capital?
Right, absolutely. I can do it very quickly. There are 17 school districts in Nevada. All 17 have several different ways to generate capital project monies, except for Washoe County. We have one, which is the rollover bond tied directly to property taxes. Property taxes are estimated to fall somewhere between 4% and 7%. As those property taxes fall, we will have nothing to bond against. So even if we go back to the community this election cycle, we were able to get a rollover bond to be put forward and elected upon successfully, there would be nothing to bond against, we think, for the next 6 to 7 years. So what that means is because that's the only way we have to generate capital funds, there's nothing for us to be able to bond against for the next 7 to 8 years. So we face being the only school district in Nevada with no identifiable revenue for capital funds. Matter of fact, we're the 55th largest school district in the country. We'd be the only one of the 100 largest school districts in the country to have no identifiable revenue for capital projects. Now, the nice thing is that we're not right now in a position where we're having to build new schools. although we are estimating a population increase next year, a slight one, but we're not in a position where we needed to build new schools. But at a very low estimate, the national standard for simple upkeep of basic building needs, not even doing renovations, just basic upkeep on over 100 different schools would be at least $25 million. The other part to this that I always talk about, because I think it is relevant at this time we're talking about jobs, our school board, working directly with the state legislature and the governor, created something called the School Works Bill that passed in the last legislative session. That School Works Bill allowed us to go out and do $78 million worth of capital construction projects across northern Nevada. That's put 1,000 people back to work in the construction industry. Once that money's gone and once we have no available ability to do capital projects, then that means that's $25 million to $30 million that we've been pumping into the northern Nevada economy in the construction field. That is about 300 to 350 construction workers that we will no longer be able to keep employed. And it's not doing nice-to-have projects. I'm talking about just the basic upkeep of capital construction needs for one of the largest school districts in the country. So it's a huge issue. In some ways, it's as challenging, perhaps even more challenging than our operating budget challenges. So it's something as a community we hope to engage and get some creative solutions.
Yeah, and I think, Mr. Mayor, this is a huge issue. I would like to see this come before our council, potentially, Doctor, to go through in Washoe County what those needs are. I know we have a lot of schools that are in disrepair, but I think we've got to have that discussion now because, I mean, that's a serious challenge not to have any funds whatsoever just for maintenance of our schools here in this community. So I appreciate you bringing that forward to us and would like to get that list.
We'll get that to you directly.
Thank you.
You indicated other school districts have ways to raise money other than the way we do it in Washoe County. What are those other ways?
There's several different ones. There's room taxes. There's other different types of rates on property taxes. So I can get you the list of what the other 16 school districts have. That gets back to what we call our Christmas tree list. And you can see Washoe County that has the rollover bond ability with the renewal bond. And then we also have a slight ability to generate some GST funds. But that's it for us. And so you can see those other.
Send us all a copy of it.
What's that?
Send us a little copy.
I will. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one comment, Mr. Mayor. This community is very lucky to have you, Dr. Morrison.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here, and truly we're doing some important work, and we really appreciate the community's involvement and all of you. When we ask for your help, you're always there, and that's very appreciated.
Are you really the bunny with the energy battery?
What's that? Oh.
Are you the Energizing Bunny? 'Cause you go about 900 miles an hour every day.
Mayor, that's why I always make sure to tell my wife we have a lot of good life insurance policy because I kind of go like this, and so her family tends to live over 100, so I want to make sure she's well taken care of. So yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any future agenda items you'd like to put on something to talk about later?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if we could all look at our calendars now, I think this issue with the seniors, we had heard the public comment, but it took us a long time to get this meeting scheduled for February 6th. And I think there was a perception out there that we're going to talk about animal control and the senior issues, potentially fire at some stage. But I think the issue of seniors and animal control, if we could look, because it takes staff forever when we're all looking at when to select a meeting, and I think we've got to make that a priority and get it on an agenda right away. And I'd like to do that right now in public and get this done.
I'm not sure if there's a common awareness of the actual process in which the Sparks, Reno, and Washoe County have agreed to. I know that there is a monthly meeting of the mayors and the chairman of the county commission and the managers, and I believe that was a process that was set forth for that group to set schedules for joint meetings and to set the agenda. So I think the process is in place, and I just hate to see us, start forging off into new processes if we've already got one in place that sets the theme, the schedule, and the agenda items.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Brenner, this is correct, and we will be meeting sometime this month to do that, so we can put that on our agenda to talk about if the managers are listening. I think we'll take direction and we can get that scheduled.
And I will visit with council and staff and take those items forward.
And Mr. Mayor, with all due respect to the process, and I'm not trying to be a pain here, but it hasn't worked. We have had these serious issues in this community. I mean, we've got the fire thing coming down the pipeline. We've got the animal control issue and the senior issue. And I'm just concerned this is going to get delayed again and again and again and again. We had the issue. I really thought that the issue of seniors and animal services was going to be on this agenda. I think those people who came down to testify thought it was going to be on this agenda. If we're going to have these discussions as joint bodies, they ought to be meaningful where we can take direction on these serious issues that are facing our community. So I don't want to see this get delayed another 3 months and where we're not talking about things that are coming down very quickly here on everyone's agenda items. In fact, we made a motion at this council table to include senior services as part of the agenda item for this joint meeting.
That was after the agenda had already been set, and I will take it forward at our next meeting.
When is our next meeting?
We haven't set it yet. Ms. Weber?
Mr. Mayor, I think it is important that we do set dates. So I'm asking that at your next meeting of the group, that we schedule the meetings out for the year, that we know in advance when those meetings are, so that we can all have them on the schedule. And I agree with Councilwoman Safraza. We do need to have this discussion, but I hope that we will have you all do that and get it on as soon as possible.
I agree. Right. At our next meeting, we will put the schedule together. We're meeting on the 21st of February, and we'll set this all up and get a yearly schedule set out, and we'll put some agenda items on, and we'll go from there.
I think what Ms. Veraza was suggesting is a special meeting, not necessarily the quarterly meeting.
Correct. Because that comes after the budget. When we all look at our budget discussions, Mr. Mayor, these have already been scheduled. The joint meetings are in my schedule. I think we all got an email. We need to have this joint meeting, a special joint meeting, before we all go into our budget discussions. So we're looking at the next, hopefully, month or 6 weeks.
Okay. What's the wishes of the group?
What's so hard about picking a date today that everybody can
special
agree
meeting?
on for a special meeting? That way staff
We're all
isn't
together.
spending all that tax-paid time trying to chase us down.
Right.
So let's look.
Mr. Asheff?
Yep.
Let's go.
Y'all want to check your calendars? We can set a special meeting date.
Are Mondays good for you guys?
Miss?
You and you?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Katie Simon for the record. I just wanted to encourage if the councils and the commission want to talk about specific budget items, it would be great to hear about the entire budget so that you have the context, all of you have the context for one another's budgets if you want to focus on some budget items. I think that'd be important for everybody.
That's fine. So let's pick a Monday.
19th and 26th.
Either work for me.
Of March or the?
We do the 19th. Is everyone open
At
on the
8:30?
19th?
We have shared services that day at 10:30, so that would be a rollover right into the next
Perfect.
meeting.
19th,
Huh?
March.
March.
Is that the budget days for either Reno or the county? Commissioner Weber saying, okay, perfect.
Remember we changed the meeting because I was a pain in the rear.
Because you Traveling gypsy.
Anybody got a date you want to throw out?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we set March 19th to have our next joint meeting at 8:30 at a location to be determined.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Let's determine it right now. It'll be here.
Sure.
Will
Mr.
then
Mayor?
shared services be here in JFAB then? Can the city host that as well? Because,
So they don't have to
so
go
we don't bleed
from-
over?
I think we can.
Okay.
We can work it out. Yes, sir.
I'm just gonna say, Mondays don't work for me at all. That's when my career job kicks in.
Oh, when you have.
I have
Are
another
you
job.
selfishly out trying to make a living?
Trying to stimulate the
Horrible,
economy, Mr.
horrible.
Mayor.
So what? Then he doesn't need to go.
What about Tuesday, the 20th? Oh, let's go.
You have a motion in a second.
Motion and a second on the 19th. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. So- Well, yeah, okay, let's do it. Washoe County, give me a vote.
Move to approve for the next special meeting to be March 19th at 8:30 at the Reno City Council chambers.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So 2-1. Y'all don't have a quorum, eh? Oh, do? 2-1?
Yep, that passes.
Okay. Sparks?
Cindy Sparks, understand the motion?
Understand the motion. I just would check with staff and see if we have any conflicts on their schedule first before we do this.
Unfortunately, we can't do that.
I'll make the motion. We go ahead and have it scheduled, but reserve the right that we don't have all of our staff here.
We have a second?
Second.
Wrong interview. Oh, is that you?
Wait, have you disowned me?
We didn't, not from the Girl Scouts.
Something I should know,
Which one
Mayor?
are you wearing? Girl Scouts or are you wearing City?
We have a motion from Ron Schmidt, second by Judy Ratty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
City of Reno.
Motion, Mr. Mayor, same motion.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.
What about the school board?
School Board, yes, didn't mean to forget you.
You have a motion?
Yes. Warren? Any motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Stella, second? All in favor?
Opposed? Passes.
All right.
Move for adjournment?
We don't have to do that by individual. Do I have a second on that last motion? All in, whoop.
Public comment.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yes, that's right. Public comment.
There is none.
There is none. I close the public comment. Now let's motion. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.